No update. Just felt a little something in her groin, so we'll get it evaluated and see what happens from there.
Caitlin Clark was once the golden promise of the WNBA, the face of a revolution, the player who turned women's basketball into a movement that demanded to be watched. But now, that same player stands at the center of chaos, controversy, silence, and betrayal. The league that built its future on her shoulders is suddenly falling apart, and nobody seems ready to take responsibility. How did it all collapse so quickly? And can the WNBA ever regain control of the star who became bigger than the game itself? Caitlin Clark wasn't just an athlete. She was a cultural phenomenon, a once-in-a-generation spark that transformed quiet arenas into sold-out events and turned casual viewers into die-hard fans. Her arrival didn't just boost ratings. It rewrote the expectations of what women's sports could be. Everywhere she went, cameras followed. Tickets sold out. Merch flew off shelves. Networks rearranged schedules just to air her games live. She wasn't just playing basketball. She was redefining what it meant to matter in the modern sports world. Analysts compared her to Tiger Woods, to Serena Williams, to Michael Jordan. Athletes who didn't just dominate their field, but expanded its reach far beyond loyal fans. Caitlin didn't yet have the trophies, but she had the magnetism, the spark, the pull. She moved the needle, and everyone knew it. Commentators like Jason Whitlock and Colin Cowherd said it openly. Caitlin Clark was the WNBA. She was the reason people tuned in, the reason debate shows cared, the reason sponsors lined up. When Cowherd admitted that Clark had led his national radio show 6 times, more than any woman in sports ever, he wasn't exaggerating. She was the story. She was the news cycle. And that's exactly why what happened next feels so devastating. The injury and the lie. When the whispers of an injury began, fans were nervous, but hopeful. Then the silence came. Press conferences filled with rehearsed smiles and vague updates. Phrases like day-to-day and precautionary rest echoed week after week. You could see it in Coach Stephanie White's face. The hesitation, the weight of something unsaid. The truth was being hidden in plain sight. And when it finally came out that Caitlin Clark was out for the entire season, the disappointment wasn't just about losing a player. It was about losing trust. Because Caitlin wasn't just another player. She was a player. The one who made women's basketball feel alive. The one fans arranged their nights around. The one who gave them something to believe in. Without her, the WNBA suddenly felt empty, quieter, smaller. Fans noticed instantly. Polls showed that nearly half of the audience admitted they were watching just because of her. That's not an opinion. That's a statistic that terrifies any league executive. Half the audience gone overnight. And yet, the way the league handled it made it worse. The drawn-out updates, the false hope, the refusal to be honest. It all looked like a deliberate attempt to keep fans hanging on. Instead of protecting the player who had revived them, they protected the brand. They chose silence over truth. And that silence turned into a crack that split the league in half. A league built on one name. Let's be honest. The WNBA wasn't thriving before Caitlin Clark. It was surviving. Attendance had been inconsistent. Interest came and went, and mainstream media rarely cared. Until she arrived. Caitlin Clark was the difference between indifference and relevance. But building your entire product around one person is dangerous. Because when that person falls, the whole structure shakes. Without Caitlin, the games lost energy. The pace slowed. The atmosphere dimmed. Fans weren't connected with the league's other stars. Not because they lacked talent, but because none of them had what Caitlin had. The story. The magic. The connection. It wasn't just about basketball. It was about identity. For months, the WNBA rode the wave she created. The viral highlights, the crossover fans, the national headlines. But instead of protecting her, they exposed her. Instead of shielding their most valuable player, they left her vulnerable to criticism, rough play, and neglect. And when she finally broke, physically and emotionally, the league looked away. That's when people began to ask the question that still hangs in the air. If the WNBA can't survive without Caitlin Clark, did it ever really stand on its own? The missed opportunity. The timing couldn't have been worse. Her official season-ending announcement dropped just as the NFL season kicked off. Coincidence? Maybe. But to many fans, it felt like strategy, like the league wanted the story buried under bigger headlines. It was classic damage control. Quiet, calculated, convenient. And as the NFL dominated the news cycle, the WNBA quietly faded back into the background, right where it had been before Clark arrived. Even worse, the league's tone toward her had changed. Some players and media figures seemed almost resentful of her fame. The locker room tension became visible. The energy on the court turned cold. Fans started to see it, and they didn't like it. They saw a league that didn't celebrate its hero. They saw a system that punished its brightest star for shining too much. That was the moment public opinion shifted. The same fans who once filled arenas began questioning the integrity of the league itself. The excitement turned into skepticism. The chance of support turned into silence. The WNBA had been handed the greatest opportunity in its history, a once-in-a-generation chance to cross over into mainstream success. But instead of nurturing that moment, they let politics, jealousy, and poor leadership ruin it. What could have been the rise of a new era became a symbol of how fragile that progress really was. A league in denial. Now, every headline, every statistic, every empty seat tells the same story. The WNBA doesn't just have a Caitlin Clark problem. It has a truth problem. Because deep down, the fans know what's really going on. They know that Caitlin Clark didn't just make the league popular. She was the league. They know that her injury wasn't just bad luck. It was a result of a system that failed to protect her. And they know that every time the league stayed silent, it lost another piece of its credibility. The executives can issue statements. The coaches can smile for cameras. The media can shift the narrative. But the numbers don't lie. Without Caitlin, the arenas are half empty. The ratings are down. The storylines feel dull. The league's future is uncertain. And the question that once sounded dramatic now feels brutally simple. Did the WNBA just lose everything because it couldn't tell the truth? Inside the Indiana Fever locker room, there was no peace, no celebration, no normal season rhythm. What looked like a rebuilding team from the outside was, in truth, a squad living in survival mode. Every practice, every game, every media appearance carried tension. They weren't just fighting opponents. They were fighting exhaustion, pressure, and a league that seemed unwilling to protect them. By mid-season, nearly half the starting lineup was injured. Caitlin Clark played through swelling and bruises that would sideline most players. Sophie Cunningham limped onto the court just to keep her teammate from being isolated. Lexi Hull came in battered and marked, but never backed away from contact. They weren't chasing wins anymore. They were fighting to endure. And through it all, fans kept coming. They filled arenas, not for standings, not for the coach's system, but for one name, Caitlin Clark. She was a rookie, yes, but more than that, she was the pulse of the league. She carried a weight that no one player should have to carry, especially not one so young. Yet she kept going. The same spotlight that made her famous also made her a target. Opposing players hit harder, fouled rougher, stared longer. And the referees? They turned their heads. Every missed call was a silent message. Deal with it. Every uncalled foul was a reminder that fame came with punishment. Sophie Cunningham reached her breaking point first. She stopped waiting for whistles. She started stepping in, taking the hits meant for Caitlin. Lexi Hull became the quiet symbol of resistance. Black eyes, bruised shoulders, a body that told the story no referee dared to acknowledge. The Fever weren't just playing basketball anymore. They were surviving it. And the betrayal didn't come from opponents. It came from silence. The hit that changed everything. Then came Chicago. A mid-season matchup that should have been routine turned into the defining moment of the WNBA season. Midway through the second quarter, Kennedy Carter blindsided Caitlin Clark with a shoulder check so violent that the entire arena gasped. Clark fell hard, stunned, the sound of impact echoing through the court. Fans waited for the whistle. It never came. The referees called a common foul, nothing more. No flagrant, no ejection, not even a review. They shrugged and moved on as if the most shocking hit of the season had been a minor accident. The internet erupted. Millions watched the clip within hours. Hashtags flooded X and TikTok. Former NBA stars, commentators, and journalists all asked the same thing. How could a league allow this? But that moment wasn't isolated. Against Connecticut, JCS Sheldon raked Caitlin across the face. No call. Marina Mabrey hit her with a body shot. No call. When Cunningham finally shoved back to defend her teammate, that drew a whistle. Fans saw what was happening. They whispered what many feared to say aloud. Caitlin Clark was being officiated differently. She wasn't being protected. She was being humbled. The message was clear. You may be the face of the league, but you'll play by our terms. The problem is, when you try to silence a player loved by millions, you don't bury her story. You amplify it. The media turns. While the referees stayed silent, the media turned cruel. Instead of defending her, they questioned her. Was Caitlin Clark overhyped? Was she too privileged? Did she deserve all this attention? Those headlines spread faster than her highlights. Debate shows mocked her competitiveness. Analysts nitpicked her defense instead of celebrating her records. When rivals took cheap shots, the commentary didn't condemn them. It implied Caitlin had it coming. It was hypocrisy on display. When male athletes showed intensity, they were called leaders. When Caitlin showed it, she was called arrogant. But real legends saw through it. Stephen Curry said it plainly. Caitlin's changing the game. Kevin Durant agreed. LeBron James went further, calling out the double standard that seemed to poison every discussion about her. Yet, inside the WNBA itself, there was an uncomfortable quiet. Too often, league voices treated her success like a threat instead of a gift. Fans noticed. Every time the league hesitated to defend her, it lost another piece of its credibility. Fans take over. Then something remarkable happened. The fans took control. Every hit Caitlin absorbed became viral. Every shove turned into a rallying cry. Every silent referee became the villain in a story that was no longer the league's control. Ticket prices skyrocketed. Teams moved games to larger venues just to fit the crowds. Merchandise sold out faster than the league could print it. It didn't look like women's basketball anymore. It looked like a cultural movement. The arenas were filled not with casual fans, but with believers. People who saw in Caitlin Clark something bigger than sport. Courage, rebellion, and truth. And that's when the WNBA lost control for good. Because when fans rally behind a single player louder than the league that employs her, the hierarchy flips. The institution no longer owns the story. The people do. The executives could try to manage the optics, issue statements, spin the narrative, but none of it mattered. The numbers spoke louder. The league that couldn't protect its star. By the end of the season, the WNBA's biggest success had become its biggest weakness. Caitlin Clark wasn't just the league's most famous player. She was the only reason millions cared at all. Her absence exposed the truth. Without her, the excitement vanished. Viewership dropped. Stadiums emptied. The spark that brought the WNBA into the mainstream flickered out. But Caitlin didn't fade. The hits didn't break her. They built her. Each bruise became a symbol. Each replay, each controversy, each headline added another layer to her legend. The league thought it could use her to grow. Instead, it made her untouchable. She became bigger than the WNBA itself. Bigger than the media that mocked her. Bigger than the rivals who targeted her. Bigger than the system that failed to protect her. And that's the paradox that now defines women's basketball. The player who saved the league may also be the one who outgrew it. The final question. The WNBA had a golden moment. A chance to change history. To turn women's sports into something unstoppable. And they blew it. They underestimated their own star. Because in trying to humble Caitlin Clark, they made her immortal. Every fall, every foul, every ignored whistle. Each one made her story stronger. Fans didn't walk away. They rose louder. They didn't just see a player. They saw a fighter, a symbol of resistance against a system too slow to change. So now, as the lights dim and the empty seats stare back, one truth remains. Caitlin Clark is not the WNBA's future. She's its reckoning. And the question hanging in the air is no longer whether she'll return, but whether the league will ever deserve her again.